I have a Python script pulled up, and then I also have the Python shell to the left side. And I'm just going to talk about classes and objects. So a class is a blueprint. Oh, here we go. There we go. Blueprint of a unique object. I did not spell that right. Okay. There's a reason I'm not an English major. Okay, so there are going to be templates, or basically patterns of objects. So I'm going to use the example of a bank account. So suppose I have a bank account, and it's going to have, most bank accounts, they're going to have a name, and then it's going to have some sort of balance, some amount of money in it. And then I can use that blueprint as many times as I want, in which I will then be creating what are known as objects of that class. And so these are going to be known as instances or occurrences of a class. And so let's say maybe I have a bank account, maybe my friend does, and then maybe like you have a bank account, and then somebody down the street from me has a bank account. So all of these are the same blueprint. They're going to all have an individual name and then an individual balance. I might have $100, my friend has $300, maybe my neighbor down the street has $20, and so on and so forth. And so then those things like a name or balance, those are called attributes. And so those are going to be variables attached to an object. And those will be unique between each instance of the class, of a class. And so like with the bank, with the balance, each of those, each number, like I have 300 and my friend maybe has 100. Those are attributes of our particular bank accounts. And then we have our methods, which are functions attached to objects. And so these functions, they'll do different things. Like with the bank, maybe I would like to deposit my paycheck. Maybe my paycheck is $50. And so I will have a method that I will call and say, hey, I want to deposit $50. So I'll call that method, and then I will put $50 into my balance. Or I might have another one called withdraw. And in that case, I will take money out of my account. And so it will do that math to take out money and then give that money back to me. And that would be a method. So we're going to go ahead and create some examples. And a quick example that I have is going to be a shopping cart and then a store item that you might buy. So we're going to start with this item. So first, type the keyword class, then the name you want. And I like, by industry standard, it's good to always capitalize the name of your class so you know it's an object. And then we'll put a colon here, and then underneath it is going to have everything that we want. So everything indented here is going to be part of this class. So in order to create an object, we need a function or a method that will do that for us. And that way, when we say create an item, we can do that. So, and this is something that will be built into Python called def, and then init, which is short for initialize. And then we have 2 underscores before and after. I have a parentheses, a colon, and then this is everything in this function is going to be how the item is being created. And then there's one more thing I forgot to mention, is this word called self. Self is going to be a variable that is passed into this initialize method that is referencing the object we created. So if I would like to create variables or attributes for this class, so whenever an item is created, I might have a name, so I'll say self.name. This way, whenever, no matter what instance I'm using, so maybe it's a toy item, this self will reference whatever the toy is. Or maybe I'll have a food item, and this self will now reference that food. So it just depends on what you're using. So I probably would like a name, and then I'm going to have a price. So I'll say self.name, self.price. Then I want to set these equal to something. And I want to make sure that when we're using this, we're always being given a name and a price. And then I'm going to set my attributes equal to these parameters that I'm passing in. So now when I create an item, I'm required to provide a name and a price, so that way we know, the computer knows what this particular item is. So we'll do that, and I think that will be it for item. And then I want to create then a shopping cart. So we'll say class, we'll say shopping cart will be the name, colon, the same thing, say init, 2 underscores, and I'll do self to reference any individual shopping cart. So maybe my shopping cart, my friend's shopping cart. This is the word that will be used. And then I think I'm going to have a name as well. But in case somebody doesn't put in a name, I'm going to create a default, like so. So in that way, a customer, if they're shopping, they don't always need to give me their name. This way they can maybe remain anonymous or something like that. So what this says, it says, so we have a variable name. If it's never provided, we're going to make it equal to customer. And if we are given a name, so maybe I want the name to be John, I can still give it the name John, and it will be the name John instead of customer. So now we'll also say self.name is equal to name. And then we need to have our cart. So I'm going to say maybe like items or something, and that will be a empty list of all of our items. And that's where we'll keep that. And then this list is going to be a list of item objects specifically. So I'm just going to make a note of that. And then we would like to be able to add things to our cart, right? So let's go ahead and create a method called add item. And now whenever we create methods, we'll, just like this initialize, we need to pass in self. And then I would like to have an item to add. So I'll create that. And then I need to access self.items and add something. So within this class, I can just say self.items. And since also self is passed here, I can access items. So that's going to be a list. So I can call maybe like the append function and go ahead and append item to add, like that. Okay, I think that looks good. And then I think one other thing I might want to do is I might want to get the total amount, like cost, that's in my cart. So get all the prices of every item. So I'll say get total, and then we'll call self, because we always need to pass that in as we're designing these methods. And then I'm going to go ahead and then I don't need to pass in anything because I'm just creating a total and just calculating it myself, so the user doesn't need to do anything. So I'm going to say, start with maybe a variable called total. It's going to equal 0. And then I'll make a for loop. So I'll go through for every item in, and then we'll access this list, self items, and then I'll say total is going to be plus equal to, and then this item is going to be an instance of this class or an object, and I need to access price. So I can't say self.price because self is going to refer to shopping cart. So I'm going to do to access attribute is say item dot price. This will be get items price attribute, and then I'm going to add that to my total. And then when I'm done, I'm just going to go ahead and return that total, and then that's it. So that's how you create the template, the loop or classes, and then let's go ahead and use those. So I'm going to go ahead and make one for myself. So I'm going to say my cart is going to be equal to, we're going to create a shopping cart. Now, when we create a shopping cart, we're never actually going to specifically call this. What we can, the init functions here, we can actually just use the name. So shopping cart, parentheses, and then we can then we have a choice of passing in a name. I would like to pass in a name, so that way I know it's mine. So I'm going to say mine. And then, so now, that will create a shopping cart for me. Well, let's go ahead and print out that name so I can say my cart. And then to access an attribute, I'm going to say dot, and then whatever attribute I want, name, like that. So same way as I was getting the total, when I said item.price, to get the price attribute, I'm getting now the name. So if I save that, and then we can run it, so now we printed out mine. That's my shopping cart. And of course there's the other way, since the name could be equal to customer if nothing is given. So let's do that. Let's say customer cart is going to equal just to shopping cart with nothing in it. And then I can say print, and then say customer cart, I'll just copy and paste that, dot name. Okay, so now I have mine, and now I have customer. Cool. So that's how we create the instance. And so now let's go ahead and also create some items. So maybe like milk or something, that's a common grocery item. And then this time I have, because these variables have no like default parameter of an equals something, I have to provide those things. So I'm going to provide a name milk, and maybe the milk cost of milk is $2.50. And then maybe let's say I want to get some bread, so maybe the grocery store has some bread, and so we'll say bread. Maybe the cost of a loaf of bread is $2.75, so not too much more than milk. Let's do that. Now we're going to use a function now, or a method, and I would like to use the add item method. So I'm going to use my cart. I'm going to say dot add item, and then I would like to pass in what I want to add. Now, if you notice, this takes in this attribute self and then an add item. So notice when I create, you see how here in my initialize, I didn't actually pass in a self value. Think about the variable self is when you're actually playing with objects and grabbing things. You actually don't need to pass it in. It's implicitly added in, so you don't need to specifically write it. And so instead of saying self in that, I'm just going to say the item I want. So maybe I want to add milk. Lots of milk. And then I would like to also add some bread. So let's go ahead and make some bread. And now let's go ahead and print out. Let's see. I think I want to print out everything. So I'm going to make another for loop. So for item, and then I'm going to say in my cart dot items to get each item. And then I would like to print item dot name, and then I also want to print out the price so I can see all the prices. So maybe something like that. Let's go ahead and run that. So now you see I have added that. I've added a milk item and then a bread item here. And then let's go ahead and get the total. So let's say print what is my total? And then let's go ahead and print my cart dot, and then we'll say get total. Oh, let's say I need parentheses to call it. So now remember, during this function call, I don't have to pass in this variable self because it's implied passed in as you're using everything. So self is only really for when we're defining the class, parts of the class, and various methods. So let's do that, run that, and now we have a total of 525, and that looks like that added. I can do that math in my head. Yep, that looks good. So there's a quick introduction on classes and objects, and hope that helped.